Oh, is it recording now? Is it official?
It is recording. It's not official yet.
Okay.
I got to clap.
Oh, all right.
It's a thing I have to do.
Do you have a Filipino editing?
No, it's a Canadian dude.
Okay.
But
he lives in the Philippines.
No.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, yeah. Let me do it again just to confuse him.
All right. Now which one are you going to use, motherfucker? Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, my editor, he paid a lot of money to learn how to edit shit, and now I can't get a job, so I pay him very little money.
Good.
Under the guise that if I ever become famous, we'll pay him the appropriate amount. Which is, I guess, what you're doing with me with the comedy club this week.
Yeah. It's exactly right. That's exactly right. I pay you in mushrooms and psychedelic life experiences. Yeah.
I will take it. I'll take it.
Yeah. How was it, by the way? Since you made me wait to ask you for this.
Oh, yeah. So the first day was fantastic. Yeah. It's only my fourth time.
Tripping?
Yeah, fourth time.
So you're new. When was the first time? In the last couple of years?
The first time was about 6 months ago. Yeah, that's about 4 months ago.
But in the last year?
In the last year.
Okay.
And I didn't really get much from it. The first time, I think I did. My friend told me I did it the wrong way. I was tired. I was not in a great state of mind. Yeah. I kind of fell right to sleep. I didn't get much out of it. The second time, I was in Toronto just this past summer, and that brought me to a different place. I did Penis Envy, which I think is
great name for a mushroom. Sure.
Yeah, great name for mushrooms, and that had me. I was in the giggles for, I don't know, an hour and a half, where my face was red and bloated. I just had foam coming out of my mouth.
Who were you hanging out with that you had the giggles?
I was hanging out with two guys, and I don't remember much. I remember just like sitting, and I would touch something. I would say, this feels good. Mm-hmm. And then I would just start laughing, and my mouth, like a crab, just had bubbles coming out of it. And one of the guys who was there watching me is just like, this is awesome. Yeah. This is awesome. Just watching me lose my mind.
Yeah. I love mushrooms. They're one of my favorite things in the world.
How did you get into it? You're a psychonaut, if I read correctly.
Yeah, totally. I love it. It changed my life. That's why. Because when I was a kid, I grew up Jehovah's Witness, first off. And so it's super Christian, super conservative. And it was completely wrong. And as I got an adult, and when I was pursuing comedy, like maybe 5 years into like comedy, but not stand-up. I was doing like improv and sketch and stuff like that. And I moved out to California, and I became like a Joe Rogan fan.
Yeah.
Like too much of a fan.
Oh God, my podcast's going to get canceled now.
And, but that's when he had all comics on and psychedelia and stuff like that. And I would go to the float tank that was in Santa Monica, run by I forgot his name. He has a great name that's not a normal person's name. And,
so easily forgettable.
Yeah. It's like Buzz Aldrin or something like that. I forgot his name, but but I would go. So for a year, I would do mushrooms 1 week, and then I go do the float tank another week, and then I do mushrooms the next week, and I did that for like a year just to like reprogram my brain and stuff. And then I dabbled in all other psychedelia too, like ketamine and pot. Obviously was a great one, and edibles, but all those kind of drugs that I never did before. That was like controlled substances that were, but I did it in a controlled manner. Like I wasn't out of control. I was doing it to reprogram my brain.
So this part of the podcast will not be posted in the China channel.
Yeah, in China. That's so bad because they need mushrooms more than anybody. But that's where ganja started. I mean, I didn't know that until I moved to Thailand. But I thought ganja was always like a Jamaican word because you had ganja man, But ganja is Chinese, I think, or at least Thai. I know Thai they call it ganja, and it was grown out here, and. We grew up with it. When I say we, I mean the human race. We grew up with, we have cannabinoids to connect with cannabis. And so, but mushrooms in particular are, connect new neural pathways and new ways to think about it. If it wasn't for mushrooms, I wouldn't believe in spirituality. Because I grew up spiritual, but it was so controlled and it was such bullshit that it made me not believe in God when I left that. And and now I at least connect to the spirit world in that way of there's something more than me. Yeah. There's something more than me and I think that's important because when I didn't have that, it was very, life wasn't as enjoyable.
So for me, like when I did it that first night and I got the giggles and kind of lost my mind, the second day I was just like, how can you have a bad trip on this, right?
Yeah,
but the second day, I took some shrooms again, and I was in a room and I was on a phone call. And I was just looking out the window. And I haven't been back to North America in 8 years at this point. Yeah. So I'm just looking at the window, and I don't see apartments. I see houses. I see townhouses. I see families together. Yeah. I haven't seen my family in 8 years to this point. And then I started to have the bad trip. I started to have some anxiety, and I started panicking. And I came out of it like 4 or 5 hours later, realizing that, I've just spent so much time trying to escape from my home, my family and stuff. And it was the first time I was like presented with this challenge in front of me. Like, hey, you have to confront this. And I don't think if I didn't take mushrooms, I would have confronted that, And so now I'm kind of dealing with that, as I've now seen my family and I'm back in, back in Asia. So I think like to recalibrate your brain, it's like, whatever comes from inside that's like deep and buried, you're going to bring it out.
You could. I'll say that this is one of the things, and I also have a great story if you do want me to tell you, but it's a little long. But whenever I take somebody out on a trip when they've never done mushrooms before, I think it's a great microcosm, analogistic microcosm of life, which is whatever you focus on, you could hyper focus on something and it'll just develop, right? You could stare at a teacup and then you could trip out on it. It gets psychedelic or whatever. And if you focus on the negative, you'll feel more and more negative, you know? And so I think that's a great analogy to life where if you focus on the negative, you focus on the positive, both of those will expand, and you could feel it when you're on mushrooms. You could feel that.
So the other day when I was I took them and I went to the swimming pool. And I've never done that before. So water.
How great is
water? It feels incredible. But I was looking, they've got these palm trees or whatever at the swimming pool. And when I went in, I was looking at one of them. And there was like 2 black marks and kind of a smirk on one of the palm trees in the body of it. Mm-hmm. And I went over to talk to this guy. I'm seeing this face in there. I'm talking to him for like 30 minutes. I'm kind of getting the giggles. I'm just like, oh, you are so funny. And then I went over and I looked at the tree next to it, and I went over and that one was kind of looked like, I don't know if you've seen Nightmare Before Christmas, but like the tree, that's the scary tree in it with the big gaping mouth and scary eyes. That one looked like that. And I was like, oh, I'm not talking to you.
You're angry.
And I went back to the other tree, and I'm the only person, thank God I'm the only person out there, because I was talking to the tree for like 45 minutes. That's just funny. Like, hey, what's making you so happy? And just kind of listening to the sounds of the nature. I find
that the Asians will judge us anyway, no matter if you're talking to a tree or not. They're just going to look at us fucked up anyway. Yes. This is one of my favorite stories on mushrooms is I was taking it because I realized I was such an advocate of it at the beginning that I was taking some people. I was worried if I took somebody out on a bad trip and I never experienced a bad trip, what would happen? So I tried to induce myself to have a bad trip. I took like 8 grams and I was just listening to heavy music that I don't really like. Yeah. And I was watching some fucked up videos, just like music videos, not like fucked up videos, but, and for like, I had a, rough come up, but finally when it's kind of like when my body acclimated to it, the mushrooms kind of told me, dude, chill out. It's a choice. It's a choice. And it was like this conversation in my head of the mushrooms talking to me. And so they gave me permission to just like chill out. It's, you're not in control. There's a reason why it's called a trip. You're kind of just going down the river. Everyone's a little different. And so they told me to chill out. And so I just started listening to some music that I like, like some EDM kind of stuff. And so this is interesting. And I learned this kind of from Joe Rogan, but there was an idea or concept that Christianity started as a mushroom cult. And have you ever heard that?
No.
Okay. So there's a reason why, like, if you look at early Christian art, there's a lot of mushrooms in like stained glass windows. And by the way, stained glass windows are beautiful when you're tripping out. But Jesus is always wearing this white robe with the red sash, kind of like an Amanita muscaria, which is a red psychedelic mushroom that grows in that Middle Eastern, in the Israel part, and the part of the world. And
Now you sound like a Joe Rogan listener.
Yeah, it's true. But somebody wrote a book about it, and that's where he got it from, and he read it. And so there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And also you could look into mushroom. If anybody's interested in this, you could look into so many things about Christmas and mushrooms. Like reindeer love it, and that's where you get flying reindeer and stockings. How they would dry mushrooms out, they put in stockings and hang it by the right. And so anyway,
Little House on the Prairie. It was every year for Christmas they'd get mushrooms.
Oh, that would be great. Anyway, so and this is the biggest thing, right? Amanita muscaria is a psychedelic mushroom that whoever takes it, your body actually, it's kind of painful. It's not that psychedelic for the person who takes it, but their urine gets super psychedelic. Right? And so as I'm doing shrooms, all of a sudden the music of the mushrooms are telling me, I'm gonna take you higher. Something like that. I can't find the song again, but I'm like, ooh, can I? I'm like, let's go. I'm going deep. And so I'm like, all of a sudden I realize I'm just sitting on the edge of my bed with a pint full of urine. Like I'm ready to drink my own piss. And I'm like, shit, am I gonna do this? And the mushroom's like, do it. And I just chugged a pint of my own piss. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And then I went outside to have a cigarette because my mouth tasted like piss, so it couldn't get worse. Right. And I was living in California at the time, in Anaheim, like not far from Disney World, where you could see fireworks every night. So I was kind of looking forward to this, but it was at dusk. Or no, it was around 3 a.m. 3 p.m., 3 in the afternoon, because that's how I roll.
Okay.
3 in the afternoon, and I lived with a bunch of Mexicans at the time, and don't fuck with Mexicans when you're on mushrooms, because they'll fuck with you, And they'll hey man, you on mushrooms, bro? And so I was trying to avoid him, but this guy came up and he was like, hey, there's this chick in the kitchen. She wants to meet, she's been talking about you. She wants to hang out with you. She just broke up with her boyfriend. And I was like, I don't want to fuck with you guys because you're going to fuck with me. And he talked me into coming in there and sitting with him. So I come back in the kitchen after the cigarette, and she's kind of being negative, sitting down by the kitchen table. But we had this beautiful granite countertop in the kitchen, and it looked so beautiful just staring at it. It was cool. And I'm just staring at that. And I look at the clock, and it's like 3:07 on the dial. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give it like 10, 15 minutes. I feel like if it still feels uncomfortable, I'll dip out. And so she keeps going as long as this story, maybe as long as this interview has been going, or conversation. And she's going negative. And then I realize, I'm like, all right, this is enough time. I got to get out of here. Let me see what time it is. And I look back at the clock, and it's like 3:04. Like I went back 3 minutes in time. And I swear to you, gun to my head, I went back in time. And I was like, all right, I'm drinking pee more. No, the sad part is, I was probably eating Penis MV2, and it was a cubensis mushroom. So it's not the same as an Amanita muscaria. Your piss doesn't get more potent. I just drink pee for no reason. No reason whatsoever. I just drink my own pee.